Hey, deserving listeners, I'm going to react to 90 Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. This is season 8, and it just started this week. And for the very first time, I'm reacting to the show as it's coming out. So let's have some fun together, and let's see if we can learn anything as we use this show as a jumping off point to talk about relationships and psychology. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's get to the show.
Thinks that we're gonna get our own place in 90 days, but, you know, with the cost of a wedding coming up, it's very possible that we'll be living with my parents for the entire 90 days.
Okay, hopefully you've gone over that with her before she comes out. Just so scared of the conflict that's gonna happen. Maybe it won't. We'll see.
You know, you've had all of this furniture since you were born. You know, she won't be in here. That's the way it's going to be at Mom and Dad's house. I hope she can appreciate that.
I think she'll be opposed to that.
Which
She has it in her head that she's staying with me in my room.
So I'm glad they're having this conversation. It's important to have it before she gets here. There's nothing wrong with the parents having a cultural value, or a value, if you will, that before marriage or whatever the circumstance, they are not allowed to sleep in the same room. There is nothing wrong with someone having a value, the parents having a value that their adult son can't sleep in the same room as a woman that they're engaged. You think that would be okay with them, but it's not. So it's okay with them to have that value. They're living in the parents' house, and so it's not uncommon for there to be some rules of some kind. And there's nothing wrong with Brandon and Julia not liking that value and that rule, if you will. So how are they going to work it out? That's always the key to me. It's not that you have values that are different. It's not that you're having a conflict. It's how do you work this stuff out? How do you communicate about it? How do you tell each other what's happening? If I were Brandon and it seems like he is on the fence, it sounds like he's willing to go along with what the parents want, but he knows that his fiancée, Julia, is going to be very upset about that. So he's like caught in the middle. I'm guessing that's going to be a theme with this family. So what should he do? Well, for one, he should sit down and really think, well, what do I want? Is this a fight that I want to have? Who do I want to fight with? Do I want to fight with Julia, or do I want to fight with my parents? What do I want? What do I need? You know, maybe I'm 51% on board with what my parents are saying, and so that's just how it's going to be, and I'm willing to advocate for my parents when I'm talking to Julia, or vice versa. I'm going to take a guess and say that he actually is completely against this. He basically just said that. And so what do? Well, you sit down with the parents and you're like, look, I get that you see me as your son. I am your son. I get, but you're treating me like I'm still a kid. I'm not a kid anymore. And if I'm going to step forward into the rest of my life, then I need you to make some changes here in terms of how you treat me and how you see me. With the specific example of where her and I sleep. We're engaged. We're adults. We are planning on getting married very soon, and we're planning on moving out. You know, we're not going to sleep in separate rooms. What exactly are you worried about? Are you worried that we're going to have sex? Because that's going to happen. So let's just get that out in the open. You know, couples have sex. That's just what's going to happen. So is that okay with you guys? Like, what's going on here? I would have that real hard conversation with them, because if they wait until Julia gets there, I'm so terrified that he's going to be caught in the middle and everyone's going to be yelling at each other, and it's going to cause all this tension when they could easily just come to an agreement on this, I would think. But anyway, let's see what he does. Let's see if he has communication with the parents, because I'm guessing it's bigger than just this issue. I'm guessing that it's not just where they sleep. It's indicative of a broader transition that this whole family is going through, which it's important maybe to point this out, and something that we might sort of check in with as we go through with the season is all families go through different stages, if you will, not exact stages, but different phases-ish. So when he was a 10-year-old boy, the family had a certain look and feel to it. There were certain things that they needed to do to function well and to help with his development as a 10-year-old person. Then he transitions into someone that can drive. He gets a license. He starts driving. And how does the family adjust to that? How do they give him the keys, or do they give him the keys so he can drive off whenever he wants to? When he starts getting a job, when he decides to get married to someone, at every phase, the family has to adjust. And when families adjust, there's always anxiety and there's always uncertainty. And there's always some adjustment foibles, if you will. And right now, what I would take a guess if I were to talk with them is they're going through the transition from having their boy at home integrated as a part of their daily life on the farm to very likely him moving out of the house and having nothing to do with the farm, and maybe only seeing him every once in a while, maybe even just like once a month or something like that, while he has his own life and his own friends and his own children. Maybe he even lives in another town across the state, or even another state, who knows. And that is a massive transition, and that will be very anxiety provoking for the son and for the parents. They're used to the way things are, and families always worry about when there's change. You worry that you're going to completely fly apart and you won't be in each other's lives anymore. So how do you make that transition? It's that the overall transit. As a family therapist, we focus on these things. How can everyone get their needs met within reason, based on where the family is now and where the family will be? We all understand that eventually, in all likelihood, he's going to get married, he's going to move out, he's going to have a family on his own, and he's not going to see you that often, and he's not going to live on the farm, in all likelihood. So how are we going to transition from now to there? What are the steps to get there? What I see a lot of people do, and the parents seem like they might be candidates for this, is they're in denial about the future because they're terrified of what's happening. Now, a lot of people say, they're just controlling parents, they're just domineering. Why are our parents domineering and controlling? Usually it's for logical reasons that we can understand. Often for parents, it's like I said, they're terrified of their child being hurt by the outside world, which can happen, often does, in some way, shape, or form. And they're worried about the family flying apart, and they'll be like other families that they hear about, where the parents only see the kids on holidays, which would really be hurtful to the parents. And so we would talk about, so because of that terrified feeling, they're just in denial. They're just like, I can't deal with that, so I'm just going to deal with today. And part of their efforts might even be to try to antagonize the relationship with Brandon and Julia. And maybe even that's just occurring to me now, is they're not going to let them sleep in the same room because they're actually trying to throw a wrench into the system, unconsciously or consciously, who knows. And so as a family therapist, I would talk with people about the bigger picture. We'd zoom in on each person's feelings. We'd zoom out on where do we need to go here? What are everyone's needs? So I would talk with the parents also in terms of, okay, so at some future date, let's say son is no longer living with you. He doesn't work on the farm. What do you want your life to look like? And they'll be like, well, it kind of sounds lonely. Okay, so how can you involve other people in your lives other than your son? Maybe there are people your age, or there are other activities you can be involved in outside of the farm, and that will keep your social life going, and you'll have relationships with other people. Let's look to expand. Let's get creative with getting your needs met, so you don't have to put all your eggs in the Brandon basket.
I don't think she's going to be too
You
happy.
haven't told her yet?
No, I don't think she's going to be happy about that.
You're going to let her come here and then find out? Really? You always want to be honest with her. I mean, that's the first rule of thumb.
Well,
if you guys don't have an honest relationship,
I think that goes for certain things.
So ironically, the father has some excellent advice that I've been saying from the beginning when I first started watching Brandon, which is, you got to be honest. You got to talk about it before she comes over here. You got to set up the expectations. so that she can make a choice, an informed choice. And she can also be prepared. If she comes and then you spring all this stuff on her, it can be a feeling of betrayal, a feeling of being tricked into coming. And then it's like, why didn't you tell me this before I got here? So that risks that very painful betrayal that she can feel, because she might think of it as being lied to by omission, okay? So there's that. So ironically, he has really great advice, but at the same time, he's the one creating the problem. And it's interesting that, Brandon's solution is, well, I don't want to do what my parents are saying, but I've got to do it. But I don't want to tell Julia before she gets here, so I'll just wait till she gets here. So it's just another layer of denial. It's just like, it'll just go away. I'll just deal with it when I have to deal with it, which is probably not a great idea and risks a lot of conflict and hurt for Julia. Now, what I'm guessing what he really wants to do is say, parents, we got to change our situation here. But he doesn't seem to be doing that.
We were talking earlier, and I don't know if you heard the conversation, but he hasn't told her yet that it's going to be separate bedrooms.
You haven't told her yet? Oh.
No.
He worries about her getting upset.
Their temperaments are very different. He is very easygoing, where Julia can be a lot more type A. So I'm not surprised that Brandon hasn't told her.
I call it fear.
Yeah, it's fear, and that doesn't usually result, if you give into your fear completely and you don't differentiate. I often talk about differentiation. So in this instance, he is feeling an emotion of fear because he rightly predicts that if he tells her the truth, Julia, she will get angry at him and might even not want to come. Not even, maybe it'll be the final blow and she won't want to marry him, and he's very afraid of that, okay? That's rational fear. It's rational anxiety. Makes sense. It's maybe a little bit overblown, but okay, you have that anxiety. Now, we want to differentiate, though. We want to acknowledge our feelings and say, yep, I'm normal. Those are valid feelings. But what's my choice? What do I do? What's my plan? I need to zoom out away from my emotion and look at the bigger picture and see that if I give into my fear right now, then I will essentially be lying to her by omission. So I need to put that fear over here. It's there, it's happening, but over here is my ability to zoom in and zoom out and think about the bigger picture, maybe get some advice, predict what's going to happen, think about the right course of action. And I would imagine a differentiated individual, more differentiated, would say, well, I've got to tell her. And I'll tell her that I'm very afraid, but you know what? If she rejects me over this issue, it's probably good to know that right now, because if she's that close to rejecting me, then I guess that's just what's going to happen. Or another thing maybe would be for him to say, we have to start learning how to communicate. And she gets real angry at me sometimes. I don't know if that's true, but she gets really reactive to me, and we have to find a way to be able to communicate about that. We need to work on how she communicates to me and how assertive I am with her. And so, maybe I need to work on that so that I don't give in to my fear so much. Maybe I should go to a couples therapist and talk about how the two of us can communicate about that. So when you're fused or undifferentiated, you allow your emotions to completely run the show, and you don't have the ability to zoom out and think of the bigger picture and think about what could happen in the future. And in that process, you actually make your life worse, because you aren't giving yourself a chance to actually make a good plan. You're just allowing your emotions to run the show and completely cloud everything. So let's see what he does. Maybe he'll figure it out.
When you guys are in a hotel, like when we've traveled together, that's one thing, that's fine. But it's just when you're in our own house, it's just, to me, it just feels, I just don't like that.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I guess we're kind of getting old, dear. We
Old-fashioned.
still deal in the old-fashioned of respect for your parents.
I just rather have her room, and I'm sure maybe at some point they might sneak back and forth. Who knows? I guess when we were kids, we would have thought about it, but if that happens, it's like, I don't want to know about it.
So it's interesting that she was saying when we were kids. He's not a kid. He's 27. He's young compared to them, but he is a grown man. When I was 27, I was a therapist. So he has a job. He works. He, I'm guessing pays his bills. But on the other hand, we saw the room that he lived in, and they even say like, "Oh, we're going to give you a big boy room." So he might be participating in the childish narrative for the family. And that's something that often gets obscured when we watch shows like this, is that it always looks like, oh, the parents are the evil ones. But a lot of times the kids will also play along with it, because there are benefits to not growing up. You don't have to pay your bills. You don't have to do your laundry. You don't have to worry about your things. You don't have to take risks as much in life. And so adult children who are in those kinds of overfunction or underfunction or dynamics will look like they're the victims, but sometimes they're actively participating in it. Now, they were socialized into that role from a very young age when they didn't have as much control, but by the time they're 27, they might actually be participating in it. And we're seeing a little bit of that in his behavior right now, where he's verbally saying, I don't like this, but he's doing it very, very quickly and briefly. He could easily say, no, this is not how it's happening, Mom and Dad. I get your value and I want to respect you, but not on this level. If I'm going to start on a good foot with my fiancé, you're going to have to treat us like we're adults. And that's just how I get your wish here, but no, that's just not going to happen. And I'm going to pick my battles with you, and this is one of the battles I'm going to battle you on. It's just not going to happen. Julia is absolutely going to sleep in my room because those are my values. He's not really doing that, right? He's not necessarily putting forth how he really feels about it. I wonder if his parents would actually relent if he were to be more forward about that, or even say, Mom and Dad, we need to talk. There's a lot of things that need to change, but there's one thing that needs to change, and that's where Julia sleeps. If you don't change your mind on this, I am going to be so upset at you because you're totally disrespecting me. It's almost like you're trying to sabotage the situation. You're not treating me like I'm 27. I'm 27. If I were 17, I guess I would understand, but I'm 27, Mom and Dad. And you need to change. And the fact that you're treating me this way really bothers me. So some attempt, right? But you need to be differentiated. You need to be able to think, okay, what's the bigger picture here? I wonder if he also has a ton of anxiety about his parents and then doesn't zoom out enough and allows his fears about confronting them get in the way of him thinking, I need to have a sit down with them and have a conversation. I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. Let's watch.
Put it behind here so it hangs free, and there you go.
Here, move over a little.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They're good. I'm just going to fold some of this so we can get this stuck in the drawers.
As a family therapist, this also just occurred to me. We think systemically, meaning we look at the system and how the system configures itself, and how different people take on different roles. And when you have lesser differentiation in a family, more problems in a family emotionally, people tend to distinguish themselves into particular rigid roles. And one of the things that might actually be happening in this system is the family is not moving forward. They're not moving forward in a way that will help him get his needs met. He might have a need to be a big boy, to be a 27-year-old, to be independent, to think independently, to be treated like he's a grown man. And the family is having a really hard time making that transition based on the anxieties that all of them are feeling. And so what the system has done is it has elected a fourth person to come into this system to disrupt the system. You could think of it as the family system unconsciously knows that there's something wrong and is subconsciously seeking out some element to to throw everything off and force them all to change. And Julia is the perfect person. She sounds like a very strong-willed person from the way that they're describing. She's going to come in. She's going to demand that he be a grown-up, that he stand up to the parents, that he move out, that he become his own person. And subconsciously, all the family could know that, but they know that they can't do it on their own, and so they're actually subconsciously wanting her to come. At the same time, they actually don't want her to disrupt. So they're ambivalent about it. They want change, but they also don't want change. So that's one way of conceptualizing how this is going, and sometimes that can really help. I've treated families like this before, and when I explain that to families, they'll say, "Oh, interesting." So when I feel like Julia is this terrible influence, you're saying that I might subconsciously be wanting her to come in and disrupt things because I might subconsciously know that our family is stuck. It gives people a chance to see the bigger picture and to zoom out a little bit in that way, which can help, again, with differentiation on an individual level and on a family level.
So let's talk about the plans for DC next week.
Yeah.
Julia comes.
Mm-hmm.
Does she know we're coming too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I told her about it. Initially, I told my mom that I was going to pick up Julia from the airport, and she threw a fit and was like, "No way, I'm coming too. I'm gonna be there." Eventually, she talked me into it.
Yikes. Now it's starting to look definitely pathological. He is 27. He wants to go to the airport, pick up his fiancé, and he didn't want his parents to come to the airport, but the mom pressed the issue. There was a bit of a conflict. I'm guessing it was very short because Brandon seems to give in very quickly. And then he gave in and said, okay. And you just have to wonder what would be going through the mom's mind in that situation. I need to be there. I would guess I could see her wanting to be there, but really, would you want to? There's going to be this romantic moment where there's hugging. Now, there's a possibility that the mom absolutely wants to be there so she can control the situation, and she might even be Machiavellian in she's actually looking for to be in contact so that she can manipulate them to not be with each other, or she wants to establish this expectation of lack of privacy, and who knows what's going on there. The fact that she is being emotionally forceful about going to the air, like, why? They're coming back to the house. You're going to spend a lot of time with this girl, with this grown woman, I should say, Julia. So what would be the reasoning behind that? Maybe we'll hear. Now I'm starting to worry. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.